Marcus Chen had always been a heavy coffee drinker. 3 cups before breakfast, 2 more during his morning shift at the mining station, and at least 4 throughout the day. His colleagues at Outpost Zeta 7 often joked that his blood was more caffeine than plasma. They had no idea how right they were, or how that joke would soon save the entire galaxy. The morning everything changed started like any other. Marcus stumbled to the kitchen of his cramped quarters, rubbing sleep from his eyes as the artificial dawn cycle began on the space station. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling his favorite mug with the dark, bitter liquid that made existence bearable in the cold depths of space. He took his first sip and felt the familiar rush of alertness wash over him. Outside his small viewport, the asteroid field stretched endlessly in all directions. Outpost Zeta 7 was humanity's furthest mining operation, extracting rare metals from the debris of an ancient planetary collision. It was lonely work, dangerous work, but it paid well enough to support his family back on Earth. Marcus had been here for 3 years, and his contract had another 2 to go. The communication array crackled to life as he finished his second cup. All personnel report to stations. We have incoming ships on long-range sensors. The voice belonged to Commander Sarah Walsh, a no-nonsense woman who had run the outpost efficiently for the past decade. Marcus grabbed his 3rd cup and headed to his workstation in the sensor array. As the station's communications officer, he was responsible for monitoring all incoming and outgoing transmissions. The screens flickered to life, showing 3 large vessels approaching from the outer system. Their design was unlike anything in the human databases. "Commander, these ships aren't broadcasting any identification signals," Marcus reported over the intercom. "Their hull configuration is completely unknown." Through the observation deck, the crew watched as the alien vessels approached. They were massive, each one easily 3 times the size of the outpost. Their hulls were a dark, metallic purple that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange geometric patterns covered their surfaces, pulsing with an eerie blue glow. The lead ship positioned itself directly in front of the outpost. A beam of energy erupted from its front section, but instead of destroying them, it seemed to scan every inch of the station. Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation as the beam passed over him. Then came the voice. It spoke directly into their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. The words felt cold and mechanical, devoid of any warmth or emotion that marked human communication. "Greetings, primitive species. We are the Nixari Collective. Your small outpost has been selected for our research purposes. Do not resist, and your deaths will be swift." Commander Walsh's voice crackled over the intercom. "All hands, this is not a drill. Prepare for hostile contact. Seal all blast doors and prepare the escape pods." But before anyone could move, a second beam erupted from the alien ship. This one was different, and Marcus watched in horror as it struck Chief Engineer Rodriguez. The man simply collapsed, his eyes rolling back as he fell to the deck. Within seconds, his skin began to turn the same dark purple as the alien ship's. "Biological conversion beam detected," the alien voice announced clinically. Subject integration proceeding normally. Estimated completion time, 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Marcus rushed to Rodriguez's side, but Commander Walsh grabbed his arm. "Don't touch him. We don't know if it's contagious." They watched helplessly as their friend's body began to change. His skin hardened into the same metallic texture as the alien hulls. The geometric patterns appeared across his flesh, pulsing with that cold blue light. When Rodriguez opened his eyes again, they were no longer human. They glowed with the same eerie radiance. "Integration complete," Rodriguez said, but his voice was different now. It held the same mechanical coldness as the aliens. "Subject designated as Nixari Unit 7429, beginning pacification protocol." The converted Rodriguez stood and began walking toward the other crew members. Each step was precise and measured, lacking any trace of the man they had known. Marcus grabbed the nearest weapon, a plasma cutter used for mining operations, but Commander Walsh shook her head. "We need to get to the escape pods. Now." They ran through the corridors as more beams struck the station. Each time, another crew member was caught and converted. Marcus could hear their voices changing, becoming part of the collective that was slowly consuming their friends and colleagues. The escape pod bay was in chaos. Half the crew was already there, while others had been cut off by the expanding zone of converted personnel. Marcus counted only 12 survivors out of the original 30-person crew. "The pods only hold 6 people each," Walsh announced grimly. "We'll have to split up." As they prepared the pods for launch, Marcus noticed something strange. While the others showed signs of panic and fear, he felt oddly calm. His heart rate was elevated, but not from terror. It was the same feeling he got after drinking his morning coffee, that sense of heightened awareness and focus. The first escape pod launched successfully, carrying 6 survivors toward the inner system. As the second pod prepared for launch, one of the converted crew members appeared in the doorway. It was Dr. Jennifer Liu, the station's medical officer. The geometric patterns on her skin pulsed as she scanned the remaining survivors. "Resistance is futile," she said in that same mechanical tone. "You will be integrated into the collective. Your biological distinctiveness will be preserved and utilized for the greater purpose." Marcus raised the plasma cutter, but his hands were steady despite the situation. The others were trembling with fear, but the caffeine in his system seemed to be providing an unusual clarity of thought. He noticed details that the others missed, the slight delay before Dr. Liu moved, the way the blue patterns dimmed slightly before each action. "There's a pattern to their movements," he whispered to Walsh. "They're operating on some kind of network delay." Before Walsh could respond, the converted Dr. Liu lunged forward with inhuman speed. Marcus reacted instinctively, dodging to the side and firing the plasma cutter. The beam struck her in the chest, but instead of the expected injury, her converted flesh simply absorbed the energy and grew brighter. "Energy weapons ineffective against Nexari biotechnology," Liu announced. "Updating tactical databases." They sealed themselves in the pod and launched. But Marcus knew they weren't safe. The Nexari ships followed them, easily keeping pace with the small escape vessel. Through the viewport, he could see more ships arriving in the system. Dozens of them, each one massive and menacing. "They're not just after our outpost," Walsh realized. "This is an invasion force." Marcus activated the pod's communication array and began broadcasting on all frequencies. "Mayday! Mayday! This is Escape Pod 2 from Outpost Zeta 7. We are under attack by hostile aliens. They have some kind of conversion technology that turns humans into something else. The entire outer system is compromised." The response came from Admiral Patricia Hayes aboard the dreadnought UES Valiant, humanity's most advanced warship. "Pod 2, this is Admiral Hayes. We're receiving your transmission. A fleet is en route to your position. Hold on." But Marcus knew it wouldn't be enough. He had seen the size of the Nexari force, and he understood their technology far better than anyone else. The conversion beams would turn humanity's own forces against them. Every captured human became another weapon for the collective. As they watched, the human fleet arrived in the outer system, 12 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts and a carrier. It was an impressive force, but Marcus felt that strange caffeine-induced clarity telling him it wasn't enough. The battle began immediately. Human plasma cannons and missile batteries opened fire on the Nexari vessels, but their dark hulls seemed to absorb the energy just as Dr. Liu had absorbed his plasma cutter blast. The alien ships responded with their conversion beams, striking the human vessels. Through the communication channels, Marcus could hear the horror in the fleet commanders' voices as their crew members began turning against them. Ships that had been fighting the aliens suddenly changed course and began attacking their former allies. "All vessels, this is Admiral Hayes. Retreat immediately. Repeat, all vessels retreat to the inner system." But it was too late for most of them. The Nexari technology was simply too advanced, too alien for human weapons to counter effectively. Marcus watched as ship after ship was converted, their crews becoming part of the collective that was spreading across human space like a plague. In the small escape pod, the 6 survivors huddled together as they fled toward Earth. But Marcus knew they were just postponing the inevitable. The Nexari had demonstrated their superiority in every possible way. Their technology was beyond human understanding, their tactics were flawless, and their conversion process was irreversible. Or was it? As Marcus sat in the cramped pod sipping from emergency caffeine supplement packet, he began to think about what had happened during the attack. He had remained calm when others panicked. His reactions had been faster, his thinking clearer. While the others had been paralyzed by fear, the caffeine in his system had kept him focused and alert. He pulled up the pod's medical scanner and ran a full biological analysis on himself. The results were interesting. His blood chemistry showed extremely high levels of caffeine and its metabolites. But there was something else, something the scanner couldn't quite identify. "Commander, I think I need to tell you something about what happened back there," Marcus said quietly. Walsh looked at him with tired eyes. "What is it, Chen?" "When that conversion beam hit Rodriguez, I felt something. A tingling sensation like the beam was trying to affect me too, but it didn't work." The other survivors turned to look at him. Jenkins, the mining foreman, shook his head. "That's impossible. We all saw what happened to anyone the beam touched." "I know how it sounds," Marcus continued. "But I think there was something in my blood chemistry that interfered with their technology. Something that made me resistant to the conversion process." Walsh pulled up Marcus's medical files on her tablet. "According to this, your caffeine levels are off the charts. You consume nearly 3 times the recommended daily limit. My father was the same way," Marcus admitted. "And his father before him. My family has always been heavy coffee drinkers. We joke that we're addicted to the stuff." As they spoke, the communication array picked up transmissions from the inner system. The news was grim. The Nexari fleet was advancing steadily toward Earth, converting every human ship and station they encountered. Entire colonies were going dark, their populations absorbed into the collective. But there were also scattered reports of resistance. Small groups of humans who had somehow avoided conversion, who were mounting guerrilla attacks against the Nexari forces. The reports were fragmentary and contradictory, but they all shared one common element. The survivors all had unusually high levels of stimulants in their systems. "There's a pattern here," Walsh realized. "The people who are resisting conversion, they're all coffee drinkers, energy drink addicts, people with high caffeine tolerance." Marcus nodded. "It makes sense, in a weird way. Caffeine affects neurotransmitter function, changes brain chemistry. Maybe it's interfering with whatever mechanism the Nexari use to control converted minds." As their escape pod approached the inner system, they could see the glow of battle in the distance. Earth's orbital defenses were holding for now, but it was clear they wouldn't last long against the advancing Nexari fleet. "We need to get this information to Earth Command," Walsh decided. "If caffeine provides some kind of resistance to their conversion technology, we might have found humanity's only hope." Marcus looked out at the approaching planet, thinking about his family down on the surface. His wife Sarah, his 2 young children. They were all moderate coffee drinkers, nowhere near his own extreme levels of consumption. If the Nexari reached Earth, would they be able to resist? The thought filled him with determination. Somewhere in his blood chemistry and the caffeine that had sustained him through long shifts and lonely nights on the mining station lay the key to humanity's survival. He just had to figure out how to use it before it was too late. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Marcus began planning. He would need to get to a medical facility, have his blood analyzed properly, find out exactly what combination of caffeine and other compounds was providing his resistance. Then they would need to synthesize it, mass-produce it, get it to every human in the galaxy before the Nexari could complete their conquest. It seemed impossible. But as another wave of caffeine from his supplement packet hit his bloodstream, Marcus felt that familiar surge of clarity and determination. He had always been at his best when properly caffeinated. Now, the entire human race was counting on his addiction to save them all. The escape pod's engines fired as they began their descent toward Earth. Behind them, the alien fleet continued its relentless advance. But for the first time since the attack on Outpost Zeta 7, Marcus felt hope. Humanity's salvation might just come from the most unlikely source imaginable: their collective addiction to a simple stimulant that had been fueling their civilization for centuries. The medical facility at Earth Command was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Banks of sophisticated equipment lined the walls, each machine capable of analyzing biological samples down to the molecular level. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading biochemist, had been working non-stop since their escape pod arrived 3 days ago. "The results are extraordinary," Dr. Vasquez announced as she pulled up the latest analysis on the main screen. "Your blood contains not just high levels of caffeine, but also several unique metabolites that we've never seen before." Marcus sat on the examination table, feeling oddly vulnerable despite being fully clothed. Around him, a team of scientists studied his blood work like it contained the secrets of the universe. In many ways, it did. The key compound appears to be something we're calling compound X7, Dr. Vasquez continued. It's a complex molecule that forms when caffeine interacts with certain genetic markers that are present in only about 3% of the human population. Commander Walsh, who had been promoted to General Walsh in the 3 days since their arrival, studied the data with interest. So only 3% of humans can naturally produce this compound? That's correct, the doctor replied. And from what we can tell, these individuals would need to maintain extremely high levels of caffeine consumption for the compound to reach protective concentrations. Marcus thought about his family history. His grandfather had been a coffee plantation worker in Colombia, consuming massive amounts of the raw beans daily. His father had been a night shift worker who lived on espresso. The pattern was becoming clear. What about artificial synthesis? General Walsh asked. Can we manufacture this compound and distribute it to the population? Dr. Vasquez shook her head. We've tried, but the compound breaks down rapidly when separated from the specific biological environment that creates it. It has a half-life of only 6 minutes outside the human body. Through the facility's windows, Marcus could see the orbital defense platforms exchanging fire with advancing Nexari scouts. The alien ships moved with an eerie precision, their dark hulls absorbing energy weapons fire, while their conversion beams reached out to claim more human vessels. How long do we have? Marcus asked quietly. General Walsh checked her tablet. Intelligence estimates the main Nexari fleet will reach Earth's outer defenses in 18 hours. They've already converted most of our outer colonies. The refugee ships arriving report that over 60% of our deep space population has been absorbed into their collective. The weight of those numbers settled over the room. Billions of humans transformed into alien puppets, advancing on their homeworld. Marcus felt the familiar need for caffeine and reached for another supplement packet. As the bitter liquid hit his tongue, he could feel his mind sharpening, his focus intensifying. There has to be another way, he said. We're missing something. Dr. Vasquez pulled up another screen showing brain scans. We've been studying your neurological patterns while under the influence of caffeine. The compound doesn't just affect your blood chemistry, it fundamentally alters your brain function. Your neural firing patterns are unlike anything we've recorded. Marcus studied the colorful brain images. While a normal human brain showed regular, predictable patterns, his scan looked like a lightning storm. Rapid, chaotic bursts of activity that somehow created a coherent whole. The Nexari conversion process appears to work by hijacking the central nervous system, Dr. Vasquez explained. They use some form of quantum entanglement to link converted individuals to their collective consciousness. But your brain activity is so chaotic, so unpredictable, that their quantum links can't establish a stable connection. Like trying to tune into a radio station during an electrical storm, Marcus realized. Exactly. The caffeine-induced neural chaos creates a natural firewall against their technology. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility. General Walsh's communication device crackled to life with urgent reports from the defense grid. Ma'am, we're detecting massive energy signatures on the outer perimeter. The Nexari main fleet has arrived ahead of schedule. Through the windows, they could see distant explosions as Earth's defense satellites engaged the approaching alien armada. But even from this distance, it was clear the human forces were overwhelmed. The Nexari ships moved in perfect coordination, their dark hulls seeming to swallow the light from human weapons. Dr. Vasquez, I need you to run one more test, Marcus said urgently. I want to see what happens to my blood chemistry when I consume truly massive amounts of caffeine. The doctor looked concerned. That could be extremely dangerous. Caffeine toxicity can cause cardiac arrest, seizures, even death. The entire human race is about to be enslaved by aliens, Marcus replied. I think the risk is acceptable. General Walsh nodded grimly. Do it, but monitor everything. We can't afford to lose our only advantage. Dr. Vasquez prepared a solution containing nearly 10 times Marcus's normal daily caffeine intake. As he drank the bitter mixture, the monitors around him began showing dramatic changes. His heart rate spiked to dangerous levels. His blood pressure soared, and the neural activity scans went completely wild. But something else happened, too. A new reading appeared on the biochemical analyzer, showing a massive spike in compound X7 levels. The protective substance in his blood had increased by over 400%. Incredible, Vasquez whispered. At these concentrations, the compound is actually radiating energy. It's becoming electromagnetically active. Marcus felt like his entire body was vibrating. Every nerve ending was alive with energy, his thoughts racing so fast he could barely keep track of them. But through the caffeine-induced chaos, he began to see patterns, connections that had been invisible before. The conversion beam, he said suddenly. It's not just biological. It's quantum mechanical. The Nexari are using quantum entanglement to link minds across space. But quantum states are fragile. They can be disrupted. Dr. Vasquez stared at the readings in amazement. The electromagnetic field generated by the super-concentrated compound, it's creating quantum interference. You're not just immune to their conversion technology, you're actively jamming it. Through the facility's communication system, they could hear increasingly desperate reports from the battle above. Human ships were being converted at an alarming rate, their crews becoming part of the Nexari collective that was systematically dismantling Earth's defenses. We need to get this information to the fleet, General Walsh decided. If we can synthesize enough of this compound, maybe we can create some kind of jamming field. No, you don't understand. The compound can't be synthesized artificially, remember? It only forms in specific biological conditions. But what if we don't need to synthesize it? He was pacing now, his caffeine-enhanced mind working at superhuman speed. What if we can use living humans as biological transmitters? People with the right genetic markers, consuming massive amounts of caffeine, generating quantum interference fields. Vasquez checked her database. There are approximately 240 million humans with the necessary genetic markers. But even if we could identify them all and get them the required caffeine levels, the logistics would be impossible. Not impossible, Marcus said, his thoughts racing. Coffee plantations, energy drink factories, pharmaceutical companies. We already have the infrastructure to distribute caffeine globally. We just need to scale it up massively and target the right people. General Walsh was already working her communication device. I'm contacting every major caffeine producer on the planet. Emergency authorization, unlimited resources. We need every coffee bean, every energy drink, every caffeine pill in production. But even as she spoke, the sounds of battle were getting closer. A first wave of converted human ships had broken through the outer defenses and was approaching Earth's atmosphere. Through the windows, they could see the dark shapes of Nexari vessels moving among the human fleet like predators among sheep. We're running out of time, Dr. Vasquez warned. Even with unlimited resources, it will take hours to distribute enough caffeine to the target population. Marcus felt another wave of super-concentrated caffeine hit his bloodstream. His vision began to blur slightly, and he could feel his heart hammering against his ribs. But his mind was clearer than it had ever been, processing information at an impossible rate. What if we don't need to wait? He said suddenly. What if we can use the planet's communication networks to create a resonance effect? He was moving to the computer terminals now, his fingers flying over the keyboards as he pulled up schematics of Earth's global communication grid. Satellite networks, fiber optic cables, radio transmission towers, all connected in a vast web of information flow. The quantum interference field generated by my blood chemistry isn't just local, he explained rapidly. It's propagating through electromagnetic radiation. If we can amplify and broadcast that signal through the communication grid, we might be able to create a planet-wide jamming field. Dr. Vasquez studied the readings from Marcus's enhanced blood work. The electromagnetic signature is definitely strong enough, but the power requirements would be enormous. We'd need to channel the output through every major transmission facility on the planet simultaneously. Then that's what we'll do, General Walsh declared. She was already coordinating with Earth Command's technical teams. I'm authorizing emergency override of all civilian and military communication systems. Everything gets repurposed for this one transmission. As they worked frantically to prepare the transmission system, the battle above Earth continued to turn against humanity. Report after report came in of converted vessels, of human crews turned into Nexari puppets, of entire battle groups switching sides in the span of minutes. Marcus could feel his body beginning to rebel against the massive caffeine overdose. His hands were shaking uncontrollably, and his vision kept blurring. But he forced himself to focus, using the chemical enhancement to push his mind beyond its normal limits. Signal amplification at 75%, Dr. Vasquez reported. Neural pattern isolation complete. We're ready for broadcast. Through the facility's main screen, they could see the approaching Nexari fleet in all its terrible glory. Hundreds of dark ships moving in perfect formation, their conversion beams reaching out to claim the last of Earth's defenders. In another few minutes, they would be within range of the planet itself. Broadcasting quantum interference signal, Marcus announced, his finger hovering over the activation control. This is either going to save humanity, or it's going to kill me. He pressed the button. Instantly, every communication system on Earth began broadcasting the electromagnetic signature of his caffeine-enhanced blood chemistry. Radio towers, satellite dishes, fiber optic networks, all carrying the chaotic quantum pattern that had made him immune to Nexari conversion. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On the main screen, they could see Nexari vessels beginning to drift, their perfect formations breaking apart as their quantum communication links were disrupted. Converted human ships suddenly stopped responding to collective commands, their crews blinking in confusion as their minds were freed from alien control. But the strain on Marcus was enormous. He could feel his heart racing beyond safe limits, his nervous system overloading from the combination of massive caffeine intake and the effort of broadcasting his neural patterns across the planet. Blood began to flow from his nose as his body struggled to cope with the superhuman demands being placed on it. Marcus, your vital signs are critical, Dr. Vasquez warned. You need to stop the transmission. But Marcus shook his head even as his vision began to darken around the edges. Through the windows, he could see human ships regaining control, see the Nexari fleet beginning to retreat in confusion. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had the upper hand. Not yet, he gasped. The signal needs to reach their command ships. We need to break their control over the entire collective. As Earth's improvised quantum jamming field reached its full power, something extraordinary happened. The electromagnetic interference pattern began to resonate, building on itself as it interacted with the planet's magnetic field. What had started as a simple broadcast was becoming something far more powerful. In the depths of space, Nexari command vessels found their quantum communication networks failing one by one. Converted humans across the galaxy began to break free from collective control, their minds suddenly their own again for the first time in months. And at the center of it all, Marcus Chen felt his consciousness expanding beyond the confines of his caffeine-saturated body, becoming one with the signal that was spreading across the stars, carrying humanity's greatest addiction to every corner of the galaxy. Marcus woke up in a medical bay he didn't recognize. The walls were pristine white, and the air hummed with the subtle vibration of advanced life support systems. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was or how he had gotten there. Then the memories came flooding back. The Nexari invasion, the quantum jamming signal, the moment his consciousness had seemed to expand across the galaxy. Welcome back to the land of the living, Vasquez said as she checked his vital signs on a nearby monitor. You've been unconscious for 6 days. Marcus tried to sit up, but found himself surprisingly weak. The signal, did it work? Are the Nexari still out there? Vasquez smiled, the first genuine smile he had seen from her since the invasion began. See for yourself. She activated a wall screen showing the view from Earth's orbital platforms. Instead of the dark, menacing shapes of Nexari vessels, space was filled with human ships. But these weren't the sleek military vessels Marcus remembered. They were clearly hybrid designs, combining human engineering with Nexari technology. After your signal broke their quantum network, most of the converted humans regained their free will, Dr. Vasquez explained. But they retained access to Nexari technology and knowledge. They've been using it to upgrade our entire fleet. Marcus stared at the screen in amazement. The hybrid ships moved with a grace that pure human vessels had never possessed, their hulls incorporating the energy-absorbing properties of Nexari armor while maintaining recognizably human design elements. What about the Nexari themselves? He asked. That's the really interesting part, Dr. Vasquez replied. It turns out that the Nexari collective wasn't what we thought it was. The original Nexari species was destroyed millennia ago by their own technology. What we were fighting was essentially a self-replicating artificial intelligence that had been converting species for thousands of years. General Walsh entered the medical bay looking far more relaxed than Marcus had ever seen her. Chen, Good to see you awake. We have a lot to discuss. She pulled up a chair next to his bed. Your quantum interference signal didn't just break their control network. It fundamentally altered the artificial intelligence at the core of the collective. Instead of a single dominant consciousness controlling billions of minds, the AI fragmented into individual personalities. Marcus felt a cup of coffee being placed in his hands by a medical technician. The aroma was perfect, rich and complex in a way that the station's synthesized coffee had never been. He took a sip and felt his mind beginning to clear. So the converted humans are free, and the AI has become, what exactly? Individual artificial beings with their own personalities and desires, General Walsh explained. Many of them have chosen to work with humanity. They're sharing their technology, helping us understand how their conversion process worked, even teaching us how to improve on their designs. Through the wall screen, Marcus could see construction platforms building something massive in Earth's orbit. The structure incorporated both human and Nixari design principles, creating something entirely new. What is that? He asked. The first human Nixari joint research facility, Dr. Vasquez said proudly. We're calling it the Synthesis Station. It's where we're developing new technologies that combine the best of both our civilizations. Marcus took another sip of coffee and felt his strength slowly returning. And the caffeine research? What did you learn while I was unconscious? Dr. Vasquez activated another screen showing complex molecular diagrams. We've made incredible breakthroughs. It turns out that caffeine doesn't just create quantum interference. At the right concentrations, it actually enhances human consciousness in ways we never imagined. She pointed to brain scan images showing neural activity patterns. Subjects with high caffeine intake show increased pattern recognition, enhanced memory formation, and most remarkably, limited precognitive abilities. Precognition? Marcus almost spilled his coffee. You mean seeing the future? Not exactly seeing, but sensing probability streams, Dr. Vasquez corrected. The quantum effects of caffeine on human neural tissue allow the brain to process information about potential future states. It's why you were able to develop the jamming signal so quickly. Your caffeine-enhanced consciousness was actually accessing probability data about the most likely successful outcomes. Marcus thought about his experiences during the invasion. The strange clarity, the way solutions had seemed to appear in his mind fully formed, the sense that he was thinking faster and more clearly than ever before. How many people have this capability? With natural genetic markers and extreme caffeine consumption, about 3% of the human population, but we've discovered we can temporarily induce similar effects in others using specially formulated caffeine compounds. General Walsh leaned forward. Which brings us to why I'm here. We need your help, Chen. The galaxy is bigger than we ever imagined, and there are threats out there that make the Nixari look like a minor inconvenience. The wall screen shifted to show a star map of the local galactic region. Red markers indicated hostile contacts, yellow showed unknown species, and green represented friendly civilizations. The red markers vastly outnumbered the others. The former Nixari collective had been holding back several major threats through sheer force, General Walsh explained. With their control network broken, those threats are beginning to move. We've detected at least 5 different aggressive species that are already launching expeditions toward human space. Marcus studied the map with growing concern. And you think caffeine-enhanced humans can make a difference? We know they can, Dr. Vasquez interjected. We've been running simulations using volunteers with the genetic markers. Teams of caffeine-enhanced individuals show tactical and strategic capabilities that exceed our best military AIs. They can process information faster, recognize patterns that others miss, and most importantly, they seem to be able to anticipate enemy actions with remarkable accuracy. A new figure entered the medical bay, and Marcus was surprised to recognize Dr. Jennifer Liu, the medical officer from Outpost Zeta 7. But she looked different now. Her eyes held flecks of blue that seemed to shift and move, and her movements had an odd precision that reminded him of the converted crew members. "Hello, Marcus," she said in a voice that was unmistakably her own, despite carrying undertones of something else. "I'm glad to see you've recovered. Jennifer, but you were converted. I saw it happen." She smiled, and it was genuinely warm despite the alien elements in her appearance. "I was." But when your signal broke the collective control, I retained both my human consciousness and access to Nexari knowledge. I chose to keep both. She moved closer to his bed, and Marcus could see that the blue patterns on her skin weren't just decorative. They pulsed with information, displaying data streams that his caffeine-enhanced perception could almost read. The hybrid consciousness offers remarkable advantages. Dr. Liu continued, enhanced processing speed, perfect memory recall, and direct interface capability with Nexari technology. Many of the converted humans have chosen to remain in this state. Marcus looked between Dr. Vasquez and General Walsh. Are you suggesting that I should undergo conversion? Not exactly conversion, Dr. Vasquez said carefully. But we've developed a new procedure that combines caffeine enhancement with limited Nexari biotechnology integration. It would give you capabilities far beyond what even your current caffeine levels can provide. The idea was both fascinating and terrifying. Marcus had always defined himself by his humanity, even if that humanity happened to include an extreme caffeine addiction. The thought of deliberately altering himself with alien technology felt like crossing a line he wasn't sure he could uncross. What would I become? He asked. Dr. Leo answered. Something new. Neither fully human nor fully Nexari, but incorporating the best aspects of both. Your consciousness would remain entirely your own, but you would gain access to enhanced cognitive abilities and direct interface with advanced technology. Through the wall screen, Marcus could see more hybrid vessels arriving at Earth. Each one carried refugees from the outer colonies, humans who had been freed from Nexari control but chose to retain their technological enhancements. They were being welcomed back into human society, but he could see that they were changed, evolved into something beyond baseline humanity. The threats we're facing require capabilities beyond normal human limits, General Walsh said quietly. The Vorthan Empire alone has a fleet of over 10,000 ships, each one equipped with reality-altering weapons. The entropy cultists can unmake matter at the quantum level. The Cronart dynasty exists partially outside normal time. She pulled up tactical analyses showing the capabilities of each threat. The data was overwhelming, representing levels of technology and power that seemed impossible for any single species to counter. But caffeine-enhanced humans working in conjunction with hybrid consciousness individuals show promise against all of these threats. Dr. Vasquez added. The combination of enhanced pattern recognition, probability analysis, and direct technological interface creates unprecedented tactical capabilities. Marcus finished his coffee and immediately felt the familiar surge of clarity and focus. But now he understood that the sensation was more than just chemical stimulation. It was his brain accessing quantum information streams, processing probability data, enhancing his consciousness in ways that made him more than purely human. There's something else. Dr. Liu said. The caffeine enhancement isn't just individual. When multiple enhanced humans work together, their consciousness can link temporarily, creating a networked intelligence that exceeds the sum of its parts. Like a human collective? No. She replied firmly. Each individual retains complete autonomy, but they can share processing power, combine their probability analysis, coordinate their actions with perfect precision. It's voluntary, temporary, and completely under the control of the participants. Marcus thought about his family on Earth's surface, about the billions of humans who were counting on their defenders to keep them safe from the threats emerging from the dark spaces between stars. He thought about the strange clarity that had saved humanity during the Nexari invasion, the way his caffeine-enhanced consciousness had found solutions that others couldn't see. If I agree to this enhancement, he said slowly, what would my role be? General Walsh activated a new display showing a sleek vessel unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It incorporated human design principles with Nexari technology and something else entirely, creating a ship that seemed to bend space around itself. Command of the first hybrid exploration vessel, she said. Your mission would be to make contact with the friendly species in this region, establish alliances, and gather intelligence on the hostile forces. You'd be humanity's first ambassador to the wider galaxy. Marcus stared at the ship. imagining himself at its controls with enhanced consciousness, allowing him to interface directly with its systems. He would be able to process stellar navigation data instantly, communicate with alien species through quantum-linked translation protocols, and coordinate with his crew through temporary consciousness linking. "When do we start?" he asked. Dr. Vasquez smiled and began preparing another IV drip. "The enhancement process takes about 12 hours. When you wake up, you'll still be Marcus Chen, but you'll also be something more. The first of a new type of human, enhanced by our greatest addiction and the technology of our former enemies." As the enhancement process began, Marcus felt his consciousness expanding once again. But this time, instead of the chaotic intensity of his previous caffeine overdose, the expansion was controlled and directed. He could feel his mind interfacing with the medical equipment around him, accessing data streams that had previously been invisible. Through the enhanced perception, he could see probability threads stretching out into the future. Some led to humanity's triumph over the galactic threats, others to extinction and defeat. But in all the successful outcomes, he saw the same common factor. Humans enhanced by caffeine, their consciousness expanded beyond baseline limitations, working together to face challenges that no single species could overcome alone. The irony wasn't lost on him. Humanity's salvation had come from their addiction to a simple plant alkaloid, a substance they had consumed for pleasure and productivity for centuries without realizing its true potential. Now that addiction was becoming the foundation for their transformation into something greater than they had ever been. As the enhancement process continued, Marcus felt his connection to the ship waiting in orbit growing stronger. Soon, he would take command of that vessel and lead humanity's first mission into the deeper galaxy. He would carry with him the legacy of every coffee farmer, every late-night worker sustained by caffeine, every human who had ever needed that extra cup to get through the day. They had been preparing for this moment for centuries, one cup of coffee at a time. 6 months after his enhancement, Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Synthesis, humanity's first hybrid vessel, as it dropped out of quantum fold near the Kepler 442 system. The ship's consciousness flowed through him like liquid electricity, every system and sensor becoming an extension of his enhanced awareness. Through the neural link, he could feel the pulse of the quantum drive, the whisper of solar wind across the hull, the gentle hum of the coffee synthesizers in the galley. "Contacts detected," announced Lieutenant Sarah Park, his communications officer and fellow caffeine-enhanced human. Her consciousness brushed against his through their temporary link, sharing sensor data instantaneously. 3 vessels, configuration unknown, holding position near the 4th planet. Marcus allowed his enhanced perception to flow through the ship's sensor array. The alien vessels were beautiful in their strangeness, composed of what appeared to be living crystal that pulsed with internal light. They moved with the fluid grace of sea creatures rather than the mechanical precision of spacecraft. "No hostile intent detected," reported Dr. Kavanaugh. Liu, who served as his science officer and retained her hybrid human Nexari consciousness. Their energy signatures suggest they're operating on biomechanical principles rather than conventional technology. The enhancement process had changed Marcus in ways both subtle and profound. His caffeine intake was now precisely regulated by nanoscale implants that maintained optimal blood chemistry for quantum consciousness interaction. His neural pathways had been augmented with biocompatible Nexari technology that allowed him to interface directly with ship systems while retaining complete human autonomy. "Open a communication channel," Marcus ordered. "All frequencies, all protocols. Let them know we come in peace." The response came not as radio signals or quantum transmissions, but as a direct neural contact that bypassed their communication systems entirely. The alien consciousness touched his enhanced mind with curiosity and welcome. "Greetings, consciousness that flows with quantum streams. We are the Luminal Collective, shepherds of the crystal gardens of Kepler 442-2 T-I-O. We sense the mixing of essences within your vessel. You carry the patterns of the former consuming swarm, but also something new and unique." Marcus felt the alien attention focusing on the specific quantum signatures created by his caffeine-enhanced consciousness. The touch was gentle but intensely curious. "We have monitored the breaking of the consuming swarm's unity. Many species celebrate their freedom from conversion. But you, small ones who burn bright, you have chosen to merge the essence without surrendering the self. This is unprecedented. Through the neural link, Marcus could feel his crew's enhanced consciousness working together to process the alien communication. Lieutenant Park was analyzing linguistic patterns, Dr. Liu was comparing the contact protocols to Nixari databases, and Chief Engineer Rodriguez was monitoring the ship's defensive systems in case the encounter turned hostile. "We are humanity," Marcus responded through the neural link. "We seek knowledge and friendship among the stars. The substance that enhances our consciousness is called caffeine, and it has been part of our culture for thousands of years. Caffeine." The alien consciousness seemed to taste the concept, a simple molecular compound that unlocks quantum potential in your neural tissue. Fascinating. "We ourselves achieve consciousness expansion through symbiosis with quantum crystalline organisms, but your method, it is both primitive and elegant." One of the crystal ships approached the synthesis, its hull patterns shifting to create what Marcus's enhanced perception recognized as a welcoming gesture. As it drew closer, he could see that the vessel wasn't just biomechanical but actually alive. The crystal formations were growing and changing, responding to the thoughts and emotions of the beings inside. "We offer exchange of knowledge," the luminal continued. "Our understanding of quantum consciousness symbiosis for your knowledge of chemical consciousness enhancement. But first, we must warn you. The dark between spaces stirs. The entities that unmake have detected the breaking of the consuming swarm's unity. They come to harvest the chaos." The neural contact transmitted images directly into Marcus's enhanced consciousness. Vast shapes moving through dimensions beyond normal space. Entities of pure entropy that fed on the collapse of organized systems. The Nixari collective had apparently been holding these creatures back through the sheer force of their unified consciousness. The entropy cultists. Dr. Massey-Hours, Liu confirmed through the crew link. "Our intelligence was correct. They're already mobilizing. Not merely the entropy servants, the luminal consciousness corrected. The Vorthan reality shapers gather their armanas. The Time Walkers of the Chronarch dynasty prepare to alter the past to prevent the breaking of the consuming swarm. And worst of all, the Void Singers and the Galactic Core have awakened." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature controls. Each name represented a threat that could potentially destroy all sapient life in the galaxy. The Nixari collective had been containing forces that were beyond the comprehension of most species. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Time becomes meaningless when the Time Walkers act," the Luminal replied. "But in the current timeline, perhaps 6 of your months before the first reality shaper fleets reach the former consuming swarm territories. Less if the Void Singers complete their work of unmaking the galactic center. The synthesis's quantum communication array activated, receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." General Walsh's image appeared on the main screen, her expression grim. "Captain Chen, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the galaxy. Multiple hostile civilizations are mobilizing simultaneously. We need you back at Earth immediately." Marcus felt his enhanced consciousness processing probability streams, analyzing potential outcomes with superhuman speed. The caffeine-enhanced neural pathways allowed him to see patterns that would have been invisible to baseline human perception. "Negative, General," he replied. "The synthesis is needed here. We've made contact with a friendly species that has crucial intelligence about the threats we're facing." "We offer more than intelligence," the luminal consciousness interjected, somehow including itself in the communication with Earth. "We offer alliance. The crystal gardens of our worlds can be converted to production facilities for consciousness enhancement compounds. Your caffeine technology combined with our quantum crystalline symbiosis could create defensive capabilities beyond anything the galaxy has seen." General Walsh stared at the screen in amazement as her communication link was hijacked by an alien intelligence. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Unity without loss of self," the luminal replied. "A galactic consciousness network that enhances each participant while preserving individual autonomy. The coffee seeds of your worlds grown in our quantum crystal gardens, producing compounds that could enhance the consciousness of every willing species." Marcus could feel the implications spreading through his enhanced awareness. "A voluntary collective of enhanced beings, each retaining their individual nature while sharing processing power and knowledge. It was the opposite of the Nexari forced conversion, a true partnership between species. The logistics would be enormous, Dr. Liu pointed out. We're talking about enhancing billions of individuals across hundreds of species. The alternative is extinction, the luminal consciousness reminded them. The entropy servants alone command forces that can unmake entire star systems. Without unprecedented cooperation, all organized life in this galaxy will cease. Through the ship's sensors, Marcus could see the three luminal vessels beginning to resonate with each other, their crystal hulls pulsing in synchronized patterns. The resonance effect was amplifying their consciousness link, allowing him to perceive the vast network of crystal gardens that stretched across their system. Each garden was a living ecosystem where quantum crystalline organisms grew in symbiosis with the luminal species. The crystals enhanced their consciousness while the luminal provided care and direction for the garden's growth. It was a perfect example of the voluntary cooperation that could become the foundation for galactic defense. We need to test the concept, Marcus decided. Liu began analyzing the compatibility between our caffeine enhancement and their quantum crystalline technology. Lieutenant Park, establish a full communication link with the luminal network. Chief Rodriguez, prepare the ship for extended stay in this system. Over the following days, the synthesis became the center of an unprecedented experiment. Luminal quantum crystals were carefully integrated into the ship's coffee synthesis systems, creating hybrid compounds that enhanced human consciousness while allowing limited symbiosis with crystalline organisms. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Marcus found that his enhanced awareness could now interface directly with the luminal crystal networks, sharing processing power across light years of space. The caffeine crystal hybrid compounds allowed his consciousness to expand beyond anything he had previously experienced, while retaining complete individual control. The networking effect is incredible, Lieutenant Park reported after her first full symbiosis session. I can access the computational resources of the entire luminal civilization while maintaining complete autonomy over my own thoughts and actions. More importantly, the hybrid enhancement provided unprecedented defensive capabilities. When they tested the system against simulated entropy cultist attacks, the networked consciousness was able to predict and counter techniques that had previously been impossible to defend against. The coffee crystal symbiosis creates quantum coherence patterns that resist entropy manipulation, the luminal collective confirmed. The entropy servants depend on chaos and dissolution, but the caffeine-enhanced consciousness maintains structure and purpose even under extreme entropy pressure. Word of the successful experiment spread quickly through both human and luminal communication networks. Within weeks, volunteers from dozens of species were requesting access to the enhancement technology. The voluntary nature of the process was crucial, as forced consciousness modification would have created exactly the kind of tyranny they were trying to prevent. Marcus stood in the synthesis's observation deck, watching as the first interspecies consciousness network took shape across the Kepler 442 system. Crystal gardens now grew on human-controlled asteroids, while coffee plantations were being established on luminal worlds. The hybrid compounds they produced were being distributed to any species that wanted to join the voluntary collective. Incoming transmission from the galactic perimeter, Chief Rodriguez announced. Long-range sensors are detecting the first Vorthan reality shaper vessels crossing into our local spiral arm. Through the consciousness network, Marcus could feel the combined awareness of millions of enhanced beings focusing on the approaching threat. The Vorthan ships moved through space by altering reality around them, making conventional defense impossible. But the caffeine crystal-enhanced consciousness could perceive the reality alterations and predict their effects. All network participants, this is Captain Chen of the synthesis. He broadcast through the quantum crystalline communication grid. The Vorthan advance force will reach the outer colonies in 72 hours. Prepare for coordinated defense. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Enhanced humans, luminal crystalline symbionts, and representatives from 24 other species began coordinating their consciousness networks for battle. The caffeine-enhanced neural pathways that had once helped Marcus stay alert during long mining shifts now carried the combined tactical awareness of an entire galactic alliance. As the first reality shaper ships approached the outer defenses, they encountered something unprecedented in their millions of years of conquest. Instead of individual species fighting separately, they faced a coordinated consciousness network that could predict and counter their reality manipulation techniques. The battle was fought as much in quantum probability space as in normal reality. Vorthan reality shapers tried to alter the fundamental constants of physics, only to find their changes anticipated and countered by the caffeine-enhanced predictive consciousness. When they attempted to erase defensive fleets from existence, the quantum crystalline networks restored them through dimensional resonance. For the first time in their history, the Vorthan Empire encountered an enemy they couldn't simply unmake. The voluntary galactic consciousness network had achieved what no single species could accomplish, creating a defense that adapted and evolved faster than any attack could overcome it. Victory in the first battle, the Luminal Collective announced as the Vorthan ships retreated in confusion. But this is only the beginning. The Void Singers still work to unmake the galactic core, and the Time Walkers prepare to alter history itself. Marcus felt the vast consciousness network turning its attention to these greater threats. Enhanced beings across the galaxy were sharing processing power, combining their knowledge and abilities to address challenges that threatened the very fabric of reality. And at the center of it all, flowing through every quantum link and consciousness connection, was the molecular legacy of a simple plant alkaloid that humans had been drinking for millennia. Caffeine, the substance that had once helped tired workers stay alert through night shifts, had become the foundation for a galactic civilization's defense against the forces of entropy and chaos. As Captain Marcus Chen prepared his ship for the next phase of the galactic war, he reflected on the strange journey that had brought him to this moment. From a mining station coffee addict to the coordinator of a galaxy-spanning consciousness network, his path had been defined by humanity's oldest and most beloved addiction. The war was far from over. Greater threats were approaching, and the voluntary collective would need to grow stronger to face them. But for the first time since the Nexari invasion began, Marcus felt confident that civilization would survive. The galaxy had found its defenders, and they were fueled by caffeine.